Boyd Stevens picks up a wedding ring off a staircase inside Colony House, and by the time he gets it back to his desk, the ring isn't in his hand anymore. That detail sat in episode 4 of season 4 for months without most people connecting it to the biggest swing the show took all year. I want to connect it now because between the finale and everything showrunner Jeff Pinkner has said since, I think From quietly proved its own rules were real in the same stretch of episodes where its own lead character decided they weren't. Season 4 kept From's numbers where they've always been, comfortably north of 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, and still the most watched show MGM Plus has ever put out. And that means a lot of people watched this ring scene happen and moved on because the show never once points at it and says, pay attention here. The rules go back to the end of season 3, in the diner, when Julie tells Ethan what's been happening to her and he gives it a name. He calls her a storywalker. In his description, she can visit chapters of the town's history that have already been written. She cannot rewrite them. Whatever happened, happened, and her presence inside those chapters doesn't get a vote. That restriction becomes the spine of everything Julie tries in season 4. Which is also why her failures end up mattering as much as any success would have. Season 4 gives that vocabulary a method. Julie and Randall spend early episodes digging through Ethan's collection of town records, looking for anyone who managed to control where they landed instead of falling into a chapter at random. They find an account of someone who figured it out. A single object carried into a chapter, marked there, and left behind. So its older self is already waiting in the present, having spent the years in between inside whatever moment they chose. Randall doesn't believe a word of the theory and helps anyway, which is worth sitting with for a second. He's the one person in the room without grief or guilt clouding his judgment, and his honest read on the whole plan is that Julie is chasing something that isn't there. Every story walk costs Julie something physical too. On screen, it reads as a seizure, and the show has never dressed that up as harmless. She's risking her own body on a theory her closest research partner doesn't buy, for an ability she's going to talk herself out of 5 episodes later anyway. Julie tries it herself in episode 4 of Myths and Monsters. She cuts her hair short so nothing in the past can grab it. She takes a folded piece of paper into a story walk and lands somewhere ugly, what looks like the aftermath of the massacre Victor lived through as a child, with the man in yellow crouched among bodies, feeding. He notices her. He comes toward her. She panics, drops the paper, and Randall pulls her back out. When she checks the paper afterward, there's nothing on it. No mark, no proof she was ever there. The method fails completely, on screen, in the same episode that introduces it. In that same hour, Boyd is going through the memory box he keeps at the station, the one holding Abby's wedding ring and the note she left him before she died. He gets pulled away to deal with Fatima, who has started shaping something out of wet dirt in her room at Colony House, convinced it will give her a way to fight back against the smiley creature she now feels tethered to. Boyd and Kenny agree to leave her alone. Boyd walks out, and a ring identical to the one sitting in his memory box rolls down the stairs in front of him. He carries it back to the station. He sets it beside the one he already owns, the one that never left the box. The instant he tries to bring the two together, the one from the stairs is gone. Put those two scenes next to each other. Julie built a deliberate procedure, aimed it at a real historical moment, and produced a blank sheet of paper. Boyd, doing nothing on purpose, ends up holding an object that behaves like the very thing Julie was trying to manufacture. Something present at 2 separate points in its own history, brought into contact with itself, and returned to wherever it belongs the moment contact happens. The show staged a failure and a working example 5 minutes apart in the same hour and never said so out loud. The ring has one advantage the paper never had. It's carved with an infinity symbol on the inside of the band, and that symbol was on it long before anyone in the town had a word for storywalking. Nobody drew it for this purpose. It was earned the ordinary way, by being a real object that survived a real marriage, a breakdown, and a killing. Boyd has never stopped carrying. Iron Abby, the show has called her, a retired Marine who cracked under what the town does to people and turned a gun on her own son before Boyd stopped her. The paper Julie carried had no relationship to the moment she dropped it into. It hadn't been anywhere. Abby's ring had been everywhere that mattered for years before it ever needed to prove anything. The obvious pushback is Boyd's own health. The show has been open about a tremor and a diagnosis he's managed since earlier seasons, and Boyd has seen figures who aren't fully there before. Father Khatri, the bartender Tom, people the town or his own grief conjured up to keep talking to him. If you want the tidy explanation, a grieving man with a neurological condition seeing his dead wife's ring days after an encounter with what looked like Abby herself covers a lot of ground. I don't think it covers the specific shape of what actually happens, though. Boyd doesn't just glimpse the ring. He picks it up, carries it across a building, sets it on a table in front of another person, and watches it vanish at the moment of contact with its twin. Jade doesn't react to any of it, which keeps the hallucination reading alive. But Jade also isn't asked a single question about what she saw. If the show wanted us confident this was only happening in Boyd's head, giving Jade one line would have settled it. It didn't. The show planted this idea about objects earlier too. Back in season 1, Tabitha finds a bracelet in the diner's communal storage and recognizes it instantly. Not because it resembles hers, but because of a specific flaw she put into it herself while making it. Victor spent years burying his own drawings of the massacre he survived as a boy, and when they finally came back up, they matched a scene Julie later storywalked directly into. Neither example proves anything by itself. Stacked next to the ring, they start looking like a pattern the show has been building since its first season. History sticks to objects that actually lived through something, and it refuses to stick to objects that didn't. There's a wrinkle in all of this that a few critics picked up on once episode 9 aired, how openly the show talks about itself as a story. Chapters. Storywalker. A book of Ethan's that other people have apparently written entries into over the years. From has always used that language more literally than most mystery shows bother to, as if the characters themselves half suspect they're following rules an author set down somewhere, not just living through a town that happens to be haunted. If that's really what's going on, an object with real history isn't just sentimental weight to the plot. It's evidence a chapter actually happened, evidence with a place to be entered into. Julie's blank paper never had a place to be entered into. It hadn't earned one yet. 5 episodes after the ring vanished off Boyd's table, the show stops being subtle about undercutting it. In episode 9, The Calm Before, Julie tells Tabitha and Ethan she's done trusting anything the town shows her, and turns that suspicion on her own ability. She says she used to think her story walking meant something, and now she thinks she was just giving herself seizures for nothing. She says it flatly, like something she's fully decided. The character with the clearest possible evidence that her method can work, sitting one room over in the shape of a piece of jewelry nobody explained to her, talks herself out of her own power, on screen, in front of us. That same episode hands the audience a second piece of evidence Julie doesn't have. Elgin finds an old photograph while going through storage, one taken decades earlier. And it's the detail that finally exposes Sophia as the man in yellow wearing a borrowed face. Everyone in that scene is looking at Sophia. Almost nobody was looking at the rest of the photo. Julie is standing in it, in the background of a picture taken long before she was born, present in a moment she has no memory of choosing to visit, caught by history without a bookmark, a symbol, or a folded page. That photograph does something the ring only implied. The ring gave us a strange scene we had to argue about. The photograph gives documentation, a camera with nothing to do with Julie, held by someone with no idea what storywalking even is, caught her presence in a chapter and preserved it the ordinary way, on film, for anyone to eventually find. If the ring made the case that real objects hold real history, the photograph makes the same case about Julie herself. She's becoming the kind of object that survives contact with its own past. She just doesn't know it yet, because the show let her give up one episode too early to notice the proof sitting in the background of somebody else's picture. I don't think this is a plot the show is walking away from, even though there's a solid argument going around that it is. Screen Rant ran a piece right after episode 9 calling Storywalking From's most interesting idea and arguing the show had abandoned it right when it should have paid off. I'd push back on that. The show didn't drop the thread. It let its own character drop it in front of an audience holding two separate pieces of evidence she doesn't have access to. And that only works as a deliberate choice if Season 5 actually picks the thread back up. According to the people making the show, that's the plan. In interviews after the finale aired in late June, Jeff Pinkner named Julie's story, Walking, directly as one of the specific questions Season 5 has to answer, alongside what's happened to Fatima and what the children's bones are actually for. He and director Jack Bender both use the word endgame to describe the season, which tells me the writers know this thread is still open, and know the audience knows it too. The finale gives that endgame some teeth. Sophia, still the man in yellow underneath, strips the town of its protective talismans in the closing minutes and throws them into the tree that seems to swallow anything the town wants gone for good. Fatima ends the season transformed into one of the creatures herself, mid-sacrifice, buying the others time in the tunnels and leaving her own condition an open question. Elgin is dead. Two characters finally recover the bones the town's dead children have apparently been waiting on for generations. None of that touches the ring directly, but all of it raises what's actually at stake in getting Storywalking right or wrong in the season still to come. My prediction, Season 5 doesn't simply bring the ring back because that's the easy version of this bet and it wouldn't require the show to teach anyone anything. I think Julie has to unlearn the exact thing she said in episode 9. She'll need an object, or possibly a person, that already has a real lived presence inside the chapter she's trying to reach, not something manufactured on the spot with a pen or a lock of hair. The town has been stockpiling that kind of material in front of us for an entire season. The cellars and storage sheds Boyd has spent months clearing out, Victor's buried drawings, the belongings of every resident who came before the current cast. If Julie eventually succeeds using a symbol she drew herself, this theory is wrong. If she succeeds using something that already belonged to someone, sitting inside the moment she's trying to reach, I'm right, and the ring told us so a full season early. She spent Season 4 convinced her ability was worthless. The show spent that same stretch proving her wrong twice without saying so once. Season 5 looks like it's going to reward whoever can reach backward and pull something real out of this town's own history. If that's the shape the final season takes, Julie already has the one skill everybody left in Fromville is about to wish they had.